Boom. Hold on. Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're going to get into a really interesting conversation, which unfortunately has happened to a lot of people. Uh, a traumatic brain injury. Met my friend Nicholas, and we started talking, and I wanted to make sure that we have that honest conversation of what it's experienced because it happens so often. I want to make sure that people know from the other side, right? We don't know what we don't know. If you haven't experienced one, then you're lucky. But if you have, man, I want to make sure that we understand the challenges and also how you overcome some of the things. How are you doing, Nicholas?
I am doing okay, David. How are you today?
I am doing fine. It's wonderful. I'm feeling energized and life is good.
That's great.
Okay. So I know, one of the main things is your TBI, right? It's a hip way of saying, which the experience probably was not hip at all, traumatic brain injury. Could you tell us a little bit about that and the stuff that you do?
I was in a single vehicle motorcycle crash, March 15th, 2016, the Ides of March and Brain Injury Awareness Month. So I did a double jeopardy. Nobody really knows what happened, but I separated my pelvic circle. I broke my sacroiliac, crushed my left orbital, mass concussion, right side brain bleed, subdermal hematoma. I always say just a little bit of trauma. So my body hit. I was wearing a helmet and everything else, but mass concussion, there was an internal bleed. So hence why it's traumatic brain injury. Fortunately, I didn't have to have any brain surgery. I was taken right to the trauma unit. I was stabilized. The swelling reduced. They didn't have to go in. They just had to do fixations on me. Every brain injury is different, and um, it's a different experience for each person because our brain controls different parts. So right side brain injury controls left side of your body. It's also your problem solving ability, your cognitive thought, your compulsivity, your vision, everything. So with my injury, I had to understand how to adapt and relearn. I was not cognizant for 12 days, so I have a period of darkness around me where people would come in and I would respond to them, but I have zero memory of it. They would basically trick me. Oh, we're going to go to dinner to eat dinner or something like that, just so I would do certain things because, again, my brain wasn't really cognizant of the situation it was in. So that was fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hope to not ever experience that. But then that also led you to the initial coping mechanisms. How did you start coping once you realized what type of situation you were really in? They didn't have to trick you.
Um, so, um, I was very fortunate. I always say the hardest thing I ever went through, I had a really rough divorce. It was really bad. And people say your injury. I said, well, at least my injury, I was around some people that wanted to help me, not
Mm.
take or hurt. So, but before my injury happened, I was under the care of a licensed clinical social worker, LCP, WS, and I learned cognitive behavioral therapy. So she did a
Mm.
lot with me before my trauma. Like I said, got separated, got divorced. My big, go ahead, 8 months before I got my motorcycle's license, just bought a new bike. I was so excited. So I decided to make it all hard on me. But, when my TBI happened, all the wool comes out from under me. The world, I don't know what end is up. All I see is darkness around me, just trying my brain to come through it. And when I started to become cognizant, I recognized, you know, the fear in front of me, the understanding of the hopelessness or where I could be. And that's where I was fortunate enough to have this experience before my TBI of understanding how our brains work in therapy, how to, make it, how I can speak to someone about the fears that are going on in my heads or how to correct those when they come about. So I wasn't able to see the therapist was in the hospital, of course, because I'm in the hospital, but in the hospital program, they have very different types of therapy. physical, occupational, and also speech language pathology, speech therapy. But that for me was also, I was grateful to have the understanding of therapy before that because I felt like I was being treated like an idiot when you're trying to do simple worksheets, stuff like that. Is like I can speak fine, but I understood that I was getting very frustrated. I was crying and very angry, but I understood because of the CBT that anger is a secondary emotion. And for me, my trigger is belittlement and frustration. And nothing's more belittling than someone have to clean up after you or frustrating not be able to stand up or move. So I was fortunate enough to have those tools before my trauma happened, which allowed me um, to heal and learn how to accept help from different sources and learn how to expand on it. And that has created a bigger amplification for me on my journey in the rehabilitation acute rehab hospital I was in. They have a peer mentoring where former mentors come and speak to us. And I couldn't stay long because I was in a lot of pain and discomfort, but I'd be taken out. But a person that was speaking, they were a brain aneurysm survivor, and there's a left side, but they didn't know what numbers and math were, but they were a math professor. And I said to myself, why am I complaining? I just can't relax. I can't calm down. So their speech, their talk to us, even I heard it for 5 minutes, really motivated me to say, I want to do something to help others in this circumstance. I'm a 35-year-old white male in the situation. What can I do to help out other people in this? And that was a really powerful turning point for me to say, I speak to patients at different times. I do a lot of advocacy with different groups, but I always say, do your own narrative, write your own story. So I was able to stand in front of it and tell others what my life wanted to be like and how they can help them out and be part of their team.
Yeah, well, that's really powerful. Is the whole part of it is, and then how you decided to be an advocate, so that way you can explain to others, and then pay it forward a little bit in explaining what you're experiencing, but also how to help manage some of that frustration that we feel.
Yeah, it was definitely an important road that I had to travel. And, it's hard that we have to, it's hard that human beings have to suffer hardships and difficulties to grow. And this was not a fun way to grow, but I did. But through my journey, I wanted to make sure people understood that they were not alone in any of their parts of life. I saw a meme once or an internet where it was sympathy standing next to someone over top of them, but empathy is when we're walking with someone. So I
Mm.
always try to make sure I'm empathetic with them, and I'll never say I know what you mean. I'll say I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. Stuff like that because I don't want to take their journey away from them. I can't. But what I can do is show them that I am glad to be with you. I'm glad to be part of your team moving forward.
Yeah, you could sit with them, but you can never experience. You have your own experiences, and that human experience is really what does it. So, being a mental health, advocate, really is so important, and can understand a little bit about what you do. So, how do you how do you keep working through that? Especially at the beginning. Obviously, beginning was a different work through than where you're at now.
Um, I guess someone asked me once. I guess I always figured I'd fail. I might as well do it. So I'm not afraid to fail, but I can't make a mistake. We found out later. How do I do it? I do it because I want people to know that they are not alone in this, that I don't believe it all the times. I know that I am. All of us have our own part of the story, and all of us can be special, and we're part of it. So I want to make sure people know that they are not. It's okay to not be okay. I mean, they gets thrown around all the time. It's okay to not be okay. It's a mental health issue, but someone needs to help speak up and say it. Brene Brown, said if we're not vulnerable, can't be brave. So I try to take my struggles, my difficulties, and wear them as a badge of honor because it shows others that, oh no, it's okay to not be like this. So that's how I became an advocate from meeting like yourself, who are willing to speak about some of the struggles they've had. That is all of a sudden become an advocate because you are bringing awareness to it. So that is what advocacy is. I mean, I have a different full-time job, everything else, but a passion of mine is to help others. Because of my journey, I always want to help pay it forward because there's so many people that help me. I want to keep it moving forward, to pay it forward, and keep doing more. You know, do the next right thing, as I'll say to someone. Just do the next right thing because I promise that first step is hard, but that next one gets a little easier each time.
Right. It's one of those things of keeping that link, right? The person who helped me, I want to be that person for somebody. And, knowing some of those pitfalls, especially when you've experienced some of the challenges, you can show somebody, yeah, I was able to overcome it. And that's really, that light on the shining tower mentality. And I love that about, advocates and people who step up because that's really what your story is about. It's not about what happened to you. That's a portion of the story, but the really powerful part is when you become the advocate.
It's one thing I've learned to say, David, is, our memory, our illness, our injury, our trauma didn't end in a period. It's just a comma. It's just part of your story, which is why, semicolon project is really important because your story is still being written, trying to make sure, you keep going,
Yep.
and Green's traumatic brain injury and mental health awareness. And obviously, this is for suicide ideations. So the story, you're part of your story and it keeps going. And like I mentioned earlier, that's how I control the narrative. I speak about it because that way nobody can take it from me. I'm the only one that can did it. This is where I am. I don't need to own it. I don't need to, I am not defined by my TBI. I just made that TBI part of the chapters that allowed me to do what I do.
Right. That's a lot of the things that I discuss with mental wellness is all about, that's something I did. So for me, attempted suicide, that was something I did. I've now learned so much more. So it's something in my rear view mirror, right? Our rear view mirrors are much smaller than the windshield, because we have much more for our future. It really goes back to that, you know, don't let anything define you and lifting yourself up from the motorcycle accident for you, and things like that. Do you have a feeling like when you see somebody who finally gets it, right? Who's been struggling with the new norm that they might have because, of the injury, and then they start getting it, or they know that you really have supported them.
So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. So how does it feel for you when you are helping somebody through a part that they're struggling with, or something that you had struggled with but have been overcome?
It's very humbling. I mean, it is very, you know, it's very emotional. It's when I see that I've been able to help make a difference between someone's day and give them a little better day has given them hope, which is, what I say, hope's a free medicine. So that's a perfect way of looking at it. I had a patient once when I was talking to him mentoring, they asked me, when were you 100%? And I was like, that was like a slap in the face. I mean, I still don't have feeling in my hand. I still have my eye drifts, blah, 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 but I was able to tell them I'm beyond 100 now because I can help people differently. I can be part of your team. I can be here with you. That is something that's powerful. So I've been able to, it is humbling to be part of that. It's just awe inspiring. And I'm proud of those patients that are able to do it. And it's true pride in them because I know how difficult it is. I mean, again, I've been very fortunate in so many different circumstances. I try not to, what I say, don't give negative breath. It doesn't live, as I don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And I try to remember that, especially everything going on now in this world. But I mean, I was able to, through my different advocacy, through, my love of concerts, other stuff, being able to connect people from around the globe. And there's someone that's special to me that lives in Poland, and they were very moved by my story and spoke to me about how they were involved in something and some trauma and their difficulties, and we become friends through it. And it's something that's pretty crazy and cool that I've been able to create something that literally touched people from around the world just by, speaking out on something that is not a comfortable topic for people to talk about.
Yeah, well, that's the hard part about advocacy. Sometimes you're talking about some things that people want you to not to talk about, and sort of like, what does it mean to for you to be a brain injury survivor?
Um, it just means sometimes I need to understand it's okay to slow down, that it's okay to take a second to, the space between stimulus and response is where the power lies. So it was written by Viktor Frankl, and a man's search for meaning. But understanding, just allowing ourselves that space is important. I've learned a lot of these techniques through my, speech therapy and different TBI support items. So what also taught me as a brain injury survivor is that I see people differently because I see them for where they are, not, assume it's part of their identity. So there's someone who's very close to me, and she was actually at my wedding, and I didn't know her before my trauma, but she had a closed head injury in '82. And she is very soft spoken, sometimes hard to hear completely, and people have written her off as, being mentally incapable or handicapped, but she's fine. So I've learned that I make sure I speak to everybody by looking them straight in the eyes. I give them what I would want for it. So a brain injury survivor is just, I'm trying to live my life as best as it can, the hardships included, just like everybody else is. So it is it was it was a very hard and high price to pay, but it's perspectives, which is why I came with the nomenclature gift of perspective, that I would never want to lose, because I see things very differently as a brain injury survivor, as a trauma survivor, that many of the people might have gone through, but I've been fortunate enough to have healed a certain way so I can help others.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to really ask you. You sort of answered it, but you know, what type of perspective has it given you to move forward? Not only knowing your limitations as well as how to work with other people.
I've seen some of the worst stuff in the world, I tell people. I've seen some bad stuff because I've felt it in my own head. I'm very fortunate for everything that happened. So I've seen how bad things could be. But I have a good gift because I know it could be a lot worse. I know it could have been a lot more damaging, and I've been able to see it through and try to focus on the good. Like, I have a little bit of, so I was the only one involved in my crash, but it's called survivor's guilt. I have a little bit of survivor's guilt because I healed very well, and many people that might have been in similar incidents or whatever didn't resolve as well, or might not have made it. And I feel I'm sorry for that. But so what I do is I use that as that motivation to do more, to want to do more, because I did heal well. I at the time I had good insurance. I'm in outside of DC, so I'm in a very metropolitan area with the number one trauma center in, like, the United, across the country, and the number one trauma and the rehabilitation center right up the street. So I had these opportunities. So I make sure that I do what I can not to flaunt them, not to, not show how much it meant to me for the circumstances that I was in. And that's why I do the advocacy. That's why I speak about my journey, because it was mine. Nobody can take that from me.
Right.
That is part of my story. But what they can do is they can be I can allow me to be part of their story, allow me to be part to next to them with it because they are their own narrators. I'm just going to be there on the sidelines cheering them on, just like I would want someone to do the same thing for me.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And so, how did you recover? I mean, and when I mean by that, what resources did you find other than the physical ones, right? Obviously, there had to be a lot of physical healing, but that only is probably a part of the story that would be the obvious. What are some of the other things that you might have found in for your healing?
So, everybody, most people know what physical therapy is. It's, you hurt your arm, hurt your leg, hurt your head, you have to do certain things to get your muscles to work around. Well, a traumatic brain injury has difficulties because their neuros have to fire certain ways. So there's actually specialized physical therapists that do that. But I was non-weight bearing for 12 weeks, so I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. Occupational is trying to get you to relearn how to do independence, which is, cleaning yourself, eating, cooking, whatever. And then speech therapy is that, therapy of trying to force myself to slow down, take a breath to do it. So that was tremendously hard, like I said earlier, because I felt like I was a child sometimes talking to me like that. So, but I utilize the techniques I've learned there to take that ability to slow down. And I like I said, I had a therapy. CBT was very important. Um, so my trauma happened. I couldn't see my therapist. I got out of the hospital. I saw them, and all of a sudden, a week later, they had a heart attack, and I couldn't see them anymore. So I had 6 years. I had someone in my corner that was able to help me through my separation, my divorce, my new girlfriend, new name. I mean, they were there with me, and I lost them. And I mean, fortunately, they are still, survived. They just couldn't practice anymore, and that was gut wrenching. But I knew that how important it was for me. I didn't want to get stuck and how dark it could be. So I tried to. So I saw new, and I found a new therapist. I went to one of the popular websites and messaged 5 people. Two of them didn't call me back. Two of them said they're not seeing anybody. And one person said, I will see you, but I only see during daytime hours. And I said, my mental health is the most important thing for me right now. And I still see, them today. This is 10 years later. It's almost 10 years. In 2 months, it'll be 10 years since I first started seeing them. So that is where they challenged me in my journey, in my ideas of certain things, and challenge me to look at ways to not focus inward and focus outward. I've always been a very kind and caring person, but my trauma ensured that I didn't want to hyper focus internally. I wanted to look externally. So as you can see, I'm a big nerd. I do a lot of games and crap like that. So I do a lot of tabletop gaming, and that was for me one of the big cusp to push myself forward and get out into communities, get outside because it's hard. So like I said before, the hardest thing I went through was my separation divorce. When I was separated, I was nothing more than what a 35-year-old male wants to live with their mom. But I was running out the basement, this and that. But I didn't want to be stuck in my house playing video games or anything else. I wanted to push myself to get out. So I started going to different gaming stores and different meetings, but I met people to get out of my comfort zone. And I'm glad I did because my trauma happened, everything's upside down. Well, so I pushed myself to go back in those locations. Like I only move pieces with my left hand or something like that because I don't have full feeling in this hand. I would try to, creative and analytical thought is an issue with right side brain injury. So when you're playing games, it's very analytical and creative at the same time.
Mm.
So I try to challenge myself.
I just have a question. So you mentioned about gaming. So I know there's different levels of gaming, and are we talking about computer gaming, which I don't think so. But the you said so why don't you explain to us about a little bit about just to set off the gaming that you do with the pieces? Because I see in the background you're a collector of much a lot.
Of everything. I'm a collector of a lot. Yes, exactly. I used to play and I still play video games now and then, which was fine. But I always say I'm like a WoW survivor. I got my like 12-year chip right now. World of Warcraft. I used to play that way too much. I didn't want to play that when after my divorce because I knew I would be stuck with this is my this is the only community I want to be around, which is fine for some, but it wasn't healthy for me. So I play essentially it's D&D's biggest competitor. I play Pathfinder, Paizo organized play. So it's a fantasy based game that involves math rocks dice and you roll it and I it was fun. It was fun meeting people and I've literally met people from around the globe. People come in to the area. Again, I'm outside of DC. I met people that were in from for a funeral, something like that, but they we were able to find our group and we were able to give them an enjoyable time. And that's what's important about this gaming community that I'm part of. And we are around the globe. Like I went to London to see a concert and I was able to play a game out there with some of the people in organized play. So no matter where people are going, there is a community for them. And the important thing for me is, I always try to be the best person I can be. I always want people to feel safe and included. And Paizo organized play, they do have a lot of inclusivity. They want to have an open environment for any, race, creed, LGBTQ, whatever, to feel comfortable at the table. And gaming really helped me feel more confident in myself, which therefore be able to help others do it. Because I want them to feel empowered to play their silly character, whatever they want, but I want them to feel safe because of the environment we do. So I do a lot of gaming, and I volunteer with the organization up and down the East Coast, Washington D.C. So big conventions I'm doing all over. So that's my nerd street cred's pretty damn high. Like I do quite a bit of stuff.
Well, that was what I wanted to talk about because it's all about the stories that we tell, or the stories that are created, you know, um, through us, through those characters. And while your past is about TBI, uh, that doesn't define you because you have so many different things that you're involved in. And you just said, which I didn't know that you come up and down the East Coast. So you come a little north, let me know. I'm outside of New York City. So,
Gotcha.
and the Pathfinder stuff is really interesting to me because I put out a comic book called The Pathfinder.
Okay.
And, it's among, my coaching practice is called On the Path. So that's how I got the Pathfinder. Um, so it's all these things that align differently, and I love hearing about this. And I always, I grew up with D&D and things like that, and I always admired the people who are so involved in it because it takes you to that next level. It also helps. It's very healing to remove yourself from what's going on for the time being, as long as you can keep separating the
Yeah.
two.
And
How does that feel for you to be so involved in a community like that?
it's very empowering. So I volunteer for Paizo, organized play, Paizo, the manufacturer that created it, and I go like I do PAX Unplugged outside of Philadelphia. So I'm on Paizo's committee. We help run that convention for the players, and I go to Gen Con. So I do a lot of major events, and it's very empowering to be at a table to do that because I am the type of GM that wants to game master, that wants to encourage players to do cool stuff. The rule of cool, have fun. I want them to have a good experience. And if they want to do something outlandish too, great. I will make sure that the train's going to run on the track, but what do you want to do? And that's what's fun for me. And it's fun to be a player next to other people to encourage them. So it's hard when you know so many of the rules and everything else. I can't there's certain things I don't want to do, but what I do is when I'm with players, especially with newer players, I do what I can to make them help them become better as a character and enjoy themselves more. And as a game master as well, I try to get them to really enjoy themselves as well, make sure they can see how powerful they really could be. When I talk to new players, like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I was like, what's your favorite type of game character in a video game? What do you like to play? And then you can work yourself around it. And the system, and we could go on a I could talk for 30 hours about how creative the system is with Pathfinder, but anything you can imagine you can do. And you mentioned comics, and as you can see, there's a lot of comic book stuff behind me. Comics were a big part of my comics and music were a huge part of my healing. So comics, there's only one picture that exists of me of my trauma. My family deleted the rest of them. I kind of wish they had it to see more of a before and after, but it was too hard for them to see. I get it. But there's a comic with me holding a Thor comic, and my eyes are glassed over. I definitely wasn't reading it. I was, my mouth open looking at it. But it's important because I say that because that was the Thor where Jane Foster had the hammer of Thor. So if anybody watched Thor: Love and Thunder, Jane Foster had cancer, but when she picked up the hammer of Thor, she was a superhero. She didn't have it anymore. As soon as she let it down, it all came back. I actually met Jason Aaron, the writer, and I told him that story, and he was just, and I was like, imagine being stuck in your own head and being able to get, I mean, I was stuck in my own mind for 12
Sure.
days. So how crazy is this? And he was just, I mean, he was in awe, and he picked up a comic and right, he's like, by the power of Odin, Asgard be upon you, and just really neat. It was really empowering talking to him. I actually met Chris Bachalo at a convention recently, and he does some really neat art. As a kid, I loved his art and Generation X, different X-Men comics, but he did Doctor Strange. Well, Doctor Strange is important to me because when I saw Doctor Strange in the movie theater, I was in tears. When you watch him trying to struggle how to use his hands, I
Mm.
had to relearn how to use my hands. I had to pick something. I had to relearn all this. So it was very like, awe, and Chris was very, he told me about some stories that affected him. Some of him, he really liked the idea of the gift of perspective of what it did, and that meant a lot to him because he's been through some hard stuff and like let him shift. And at the same convention, I saw the writer of Batman, Tom King, and I explained to him that a patient I visited, had something with Batman on. And I said, what would Batman do? And he picks up the comic and he says, it's okay to be scared. Everyone gets scared. Now's a chance to be brave, Batman. So I have these cool experiences I've been able to take
Yeah.
from my nerdery, from everything, and tie it in. And then, so like I said, it's so many different layers of what I've done. And through my, one of the things that helped me a lot in my trauma was music. So my brain was out. My girlfriend would play my typo negative music station, goth metal, had a lot of typo, Lacuna Coil, Deftones, Opeth, blah, blah, blah. But through my separation and divorce, I walk my dogs. That was what I do. I listen to music and walk my dogs. It really helped me out. My trauma happened. Girlfriend would play my music, and you could see when I was going through pain spikes, blood pressure be up, but when the music came down, it literally would lower it, and it really helped me. So I actually reached out after my injury, and pandemic happened. It was hard, but one of the artists was very positive on social media, Lacuna Coil and Christina Scabia, and I wrote to them a bunch. The band, they were very fascinated about my story, and she agreed to let me interview her, me and another brain injury survivor, and we talked about
Nice.
music, how important it was for healing and trauma, and it was through them that I met these people from around the globe. I mean, hell, I was in New York recently. I went to 5 stops of their last tour. It was 2,500 miles. I got to go to five. It was a fantastic experience. And each part of the journey, I met new people at the show, getting excited to see people I've seen in other shows and become friends. The band and I are friendly. We talk all the time. They recognize me. And again, I try to do what I can for our community because my injury made me feel alone. It made me feel isolated. And I know that's BS, total BS, but it is something that is valid to feel.
Oh, but it's a story
And
we tell ourselves, right?
right.
But it also, what I'm hearing also is the story that you told yourself at one point is no longer the story that you're currently telling and showing other people.
I I try to fake it till I make it as much as I can and that's what I try to do because it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be frustrated. I learned through a mentor before to say why not me. So I try to take it on as a challenge. Why not me? And I don't think I've ever said the why me attitude. Um, I do just try to do that next right thing and wade through the hard crap and just, keep pushing forward. And my life has, I've gained so many awesome people from it. So someone asked, would you want to change anything? And I said, I wouldn't change, I would want to change the fear or the pain my family felt, but I wouldn't change one other thing because it has me right here, right now. So in my girlfriend, now my wife, she was there for me, everything else. I mean, it was a wonderful partnership. And, I wanted to do the first mentoring speech I did about 10 minutes, talk to patients about my journey and recovery. I wanted to record it. And she was like, why are you recording this? This is ridiculous. Well, your family came up Florida. People came from all over the country that, helped me. I want to show this to them. And my hospital therapists were there too, and my physical therapist, occupational. And I said to them, I was like, yeah, now everybody's favorite, since your therapist here, let's all do my favorite balancing and lunging exercises. So that's when I proposed to my girlfriend and now my
Nice.
wife. And those therapists were at my proposal, but many of them were at my wedding as well. And they're on my team. So if I took one thing away, I don't know where I would be right now. And there's been a lot of crap, there's been a lot of hard stuff. I get it. But when you can connect to someone that you knew as a kid, listen to music to, and then telling you that you inspire them, or meeting someone that heard me talk somewhere and about how it helped them. I mean, it makes it worth it. It's not easy to say it makes it worth it, but it makes it worth it because it could have been so much different, and I'm choosing to allow the hardship to, allow it to hurt because it's given me a lot of good from it.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. That's the gratitude where we rewire our brains with gratitude. Obviously would be want to go through that. You wouldn't have chosen that to get you here, but since you had to go through that, you had the opportunity to use the best for it. It's a little bit more than fake it till you make it. I'm sure there's days even now while you're healthier, not every day is good. And to be honest, we all get that. So, while I'm more positive and I know how to reset myself, I know that every day is not going to be good. And I need, when you have a setback, you do something differently and you push through. But having those resources and you have that big community, which I love to hear that. Not only the therapists, the actual doctors became part of your resources and community for growth, but you now are a clear leader in the tabletop gaming industry, especially on the East Coast at least.
It's surreal. And I've told someone, like, hell, I'm a little over, I'm a little over 45, but I've lived more in the last 10 years than multiple lifetimes before. It's pretty cool. And I'm going to keep pushing myself to do a little more. I don't have to. If I didn't, that's fine. But I always want people to feel seen. I always want people to feel helped and supported because, I mean, we're all in this thing together, so we might as well enjoy it while we're there. And it's interesting. So, like, when I was at the concert on last a couple weeks ago, there was a gentleman there. I kept looking over, making sure they were okay, and they were. But I just wanted to say, like, hey, I'm here. Like, if you need something. So it's common stuff people can do. Just checking in with someone. You all right? Like, my therapist told me one, I don't know the name of the book, but there was a gentleman that attempted suicide, and he said before he jumped off the bridge that if anybody asked him if he was okay, that he wouldn't do it, and nobody did.
I've,
And he did, and then he made a split second, last second, and saved his life. And I heard that story, and that's why I always ask if someone's okay, or I'll smile at them, or
yep.
just show that they're a human, that they are part of it. Because I think all of us want to be seen, all of us want to know. And I'm very fortunate that I'm a very, boisterous person. I have a big personality, whatever, but I use it to my advantage as much as I can because I don't want people to feel alone in their journey. I can't take it from them, but what I can do is be with them through it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Because it really is using the experiences that you had to grow yourself, but also to be that, you know, the light tower, the lighthouse when people need to do that, and being aware, being more self-aware. Um, what would you have told the person who before the accident, or what would you loved to tell the person before the accident to give you this level of confidence? You're obviously a different person now than you were then.
My therapist has asked me that before, and um, I would just tell herself to
Yeah, I love that
hold on to the
because
ride.
yeah, well that's I've used that as well when people have asked me what would I have told myself before some of the experiences that have shaped me, and you'll get through it. I don't know how you'll get through it, but you will get through it, and because now I'm here and stronger, you're not
Yep.
going through it alone.
It's okay to have a bad day, and I tell patients that I promise the sun will rise tomorrow. So sometimes letting a day be a day, it's good. I like knowing that I'm minuscule in the world. Because I mean, a thought. I mean, there's billions of people in the world. The world's turning, but I do everything I can to help make a difference to make that, flourish. It is peaceful to know that today will never happen again. It's not possible. The time is moving through time and space at all times, but we can make that little extra for someone else, and that's how you'll be live on forever. It's just that butterfly effect. It keep going. That acts of kindness just moving forward and forward. And if I could smile to make someone's day better or hold the door for someone and say thank you, you know what, even if it's at a metal show, headbanging with them and giving the kid a drumstick, you know what, that was a great experience I can offer a family that will repay itself in forward by when someone else is my age or in the situation, they'd be like, it was really cool. I mean, hell, that happened literally 2 weeks ago. I was at a concert, I was right at the rail, and I was there, and all of a sudden, behind me, like a dad and his little kid are there, and I'm like, would you guys like this spot? They're like, really? And I was like, take it. Like, I've seen this a bunch. I've seen the band. I'm friends with them. Take it. I want you. And I was leaving the concert. He was out there and he gave me a big hug and he's like, man, you have no much this meant to me. And I said, dude, I want your kid to know you're a cool dad. You have a great family and a great experience. And that's what matters. And that's something that is priceless that I could do by just a simple act of kindness, like, hey, man, I want you to enjoy this with your family. And, it helped him feel better about where he was and his family. And, that's something that is priceless. I mean, you can't put a value on that when we can find a way to help someone by doing just a little bit of kindness. Just, you know, that's what's neat. It's just being kind to someone can really just change. And it's just like I said, thanking an artist for their art or writing, just having that little bit of thank you about how someone inspired them through it can just pull someone up and say, this is why I do this for a living. This is why I do this because it helps somebody. So imagine all the people that it helps that don't have that I never run into that can experience it. And that's something that is tremendously powerful that we have in this terrible world of social media. It's awful, but there's great things like what you're doing and others that people can hear and they hear something and we don't need to see them face to face to know that we're helping them.
Yeah, you never know who's going to be hearing that message and who needed to hear that message. No, I thank you for your time. As we're running out of time, but I really thank you so much. But before I ask you, I always ask every guest, walk into my little magic garden, and if you can leave one seed of knowledge for today for anybody, what would that be?
Well, I think I already said hope is a free medicine,
Mhm.
but I say that, life is a four-letter word. It depends on how you want to use it. It can be kind, it can be filled with love. It can, just choose the better words to fill it, and it'll make it better each day.
That is awesome. And how can everybody contact you, to find out more about you or to, maybe have your support through what they're going through?
So I wish I had a better social media marketing plan, but I have a simple link tree at Gifts of Perspective at Gmail. But my goal is to just help direct others. Like on my link tree, it has a profile of finding a trauma survivors network by you or different resources they can use. And number one cause of death in the United States or between 1 and 45 is trauma. So it affects a lot more people than we know. And my trauma is different than many others. Mine's a physical trauma, trauma center, but it's important so people see that there is hope out there, there is help, there is resources. So Gift of Perspective, Linktree is the easiest way to find my work, my articles I've done, and the cool podcasts like yourself are all up there.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, for the knowledge, and gives us a lot of different things to think about to understand your perspective. So that's really appreciated. And thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you for having me.
Okay. And everybody else, as always, we want to wish you some peace and love into your life always. And when you bring a bat, remember, hit your sweet spot and be awesome today. Thank you.